Revealed, the incredible life-changing moment my son called me a freeloader on Christmas. What happened next will leave you speechless. Tim sat in the dim light of their modest living room, the faint glow from the Christmas lights outside flickering like the hope in his heart. Just days before Christmas, he had been laid off from the factory he'd worked at for over 20 years. The world he had known, the rhythms of machines, the cheerful camaraderie of co-workers, had suddenly been replaced with an eerie silence. The holiday season, normally a tapestry of joy woven with laughter and warmth, now felt like a heavy cloak of shame hanging around his shoulders. He had always prided himself on being the provider, the man who brought home the bacon, but now he was nothing but a burden. Jake, his teenage son, sat huddled on the couch, thumb dancing listlessly over his phone screen. Tim could feel the heavy weight of disappointment in the air, like an uninvited guest who lingered too long. Christmas dinner, which they usually looked forward to, felt impossible. The thought of disappointing Jake gnawed at Tim like an aggressive rat. He wanted so desperately to keep the holiday spirit alive, to fill their home with laughter and cheer, but doing so felt insurmountable. On Christmas Day, the atmosphere was tense, thick with unspoken words and hurt feelings. When a neighbor knocked on the door, inviting them over for a holiday gathering, Tim felt a mix of gratitude and embarrassment. He wanted to decline, to crawl into a corner and hide, but he also wanted to protect Jake's Christmas spirit like an old family heirloom. They could barely manage a simple meal, yet here was an opportunity, an escape from the weight of their reality. "Let us go, Jake," Tim urged, trying to muster a smile. As they entered their neighbor's home, the decorations glimmered, casting a festive spell. Joyful chatter surrounded them, but Tim felt out of place, like a shipwreck survivor washed ashore among those who had never known hardship. In stark contrast, Jake wore a mask of forced enthusiasm. But the mask shattered when they sat down for dinner. In a striking moment, Jake stood up and shouted, "You're just a freeloader now, Dad. Living off everyone's kindness instead of being the man you used to be." The word struck Tim hard, sharper than any blade. The room fell dead silent. Faces turned, whispers cascaded around them, and Tim's heart sank, the sting of shame creeping into his bones. All the dreams he had for his family, every dollar he had sweat and bled for, felt like ashes. He was a failure in front of their friends and, worse, in front of his son. Devastated, Tim slipped away from the gathering, the laughter and merriment now a distant echo. He walked through their suburbs' quiet streets, lit only by the glow of Christmas lights. Each decorated house felt like a reminder of his failures. But then, a neighbor approached him, sharing her own struggles and disappointments shared through tears. Her warmth pierced the cold layers of isolation, pulling at Tim's heartstrings. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As Tim made his way home, he felt a flicker of hope ignite. He needed to talk to Jake to peel back the layers of misunderstanding and share the burdens he had carried for their family. When he opened the door, there they stood, eye to eye. Tim's heart raced as he prepared to reveal the sacrifices he had made. Jake's eyes sparkled with something he couldn't quite place. Was it understanding, anger, or perhaps both? The air thickened between them, heavy with uncertainty, as the essence of their family hung in the balance. The stillness of the moment was electrifying. Tim's breath hitched in his throat as he searched Jake's face for clues. He could see the storm of emotions swirling behind his son's eyes: disappointment, confusion, and a hint of something deeper. "Jake," Tim started, his voice trembling. "I know you're upset. You have every right to be. But I want you to understand why things are different now." Jake crossed his arms, the wild flicker of emotion settling into a steely expression. "Different? You mean, you're just sitting here feeling sorry for yourself while we have nothing? The words hung in the air like heavy smoke, and Tim felt his stomach twist. Each syllable was like a punch, and he struggled to compose himself. It's not that simple. I didn't choose this. I worked hard, Jake. I'm not the man I used to be, but I'm still trying. For a beat, silence enveloped them. Tim could hear the clock ticking, the pulse of their home, heavy with unmade memories. He stepped closer to Jake, desperate for a connection. I've been carrying this weight for a long time. I've always wanted you to be proud of me, but that's not the only thing that matters. Jake looked down at his hands, the anger fizzling out. I don't want us to be a burden. I hate feeling this way. To be honest, I hate it too, Tim admitted, his heart pounding in his chest. But maybe we can figure it out together. Families help each other. And sometimes they stumble. What can we do? How can we move forward? Jake raised his gaze, uncertainty written all over his face. I don't know, Dad. I just want everything to go back to normal. Tim felt the weight of that statement. Normal was a mirage now, drifting further away with each passing day. Normal may not be possible right now. But we can create a new normal. We're still here. We still have each other. A flicker of hope ignited in Jake's eyes, but it was fragile, like a flame in the wind. What if we just keep failing? With a catch in his voice, Tim replied, then we start again. It's okay to fail, son. What counts is we keep moving. We can't face the world alone. Not now. At that moment, the flickering lights of the Christmas tree cast gentle shadows around them, as if the universe was pausing to listen. Tim reached out, putting a hand on Jake's shoulder. Let us promise we'll talk. No more shutting each other out. No more secrets. Deal? Jake took a moment, but then hesitantly nodded. Deal. A wave of relief washed over Tim, momentarily lifting some of the burdens he had been carrying. As father and son stood together, there was a sense of renewed commitment and unspoken promise to navigate this troubled sea together, but just as the connections deepened, there was an unexpected knock on the door. The sound startled them both, breaking the fragile moment. Tim exchanged a glance with Jake, eyebrow raised, unsure of what awaited them on the other side. With apprehension, he opened the door, and what lay beyond could change everything for them or push them further apart. Tim opened the door slowly, his heart racing in sync with the chill of uncertainty that rushed into the warm light of their home. Standing at the threshold was Sarah, their neighbor, a woman known for her kind heart and quick smile. But today, her expression was serious, her eyes slightly widened as if she carried a weight. Tim noticed the small envelope in her hand, the edges worn from clenching. Tim, she said gently, I hope I'm not interrupting. No. Come in, Tim replied, stepping aside. Jake peeked from behind his father, curiosity mingling with the tension still hanging in the air. Sarah crossed the threshold, her eyes darting between father and son. She took a breath, then continued, I wasn't sure how to bring this up, but I got your mail accidentally. It's not just mail. It's a letter from the bank. Tim's stomach sank. What do you mean? His voice tightened, and he felt the room shift around him. It looks important. I thought you should read it yourself, Sarah said, handing the envelope over. The paper felt heavy in Tim's hands, each crease a reminder of the tangled mess of their lives. Jake moved closer, drawn in by the weight of the moment. Tim tore the envelope open with shaking fingers, his breath hitching as he pulled out the contents. The words blurred together, but the parts he could decipher felt like daggers. Overdue, payment, foreclosure. The air in the room went still, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. Tim's heartbeat thundered in his ears as he read and reread the sentences, searching for anything that might alter the harsh reality taking shape in front of him. Dad, Jake's voice was a whisper, almost afraid of what it might stir. What does it say? Tim took a shaky breath, his face turning pale. It's nothing we can't handle. Just a bump in the road. His attempt at reassurance crackled with uncertainty. But Jake wasn't convinced. Dad, it sounds serious. Tim's heart twisted. How could he tell his son the truth? It is, but we can figure it out. Just like we said earlier, right? Jake shook his head slightly, defiance flashing in his eyes. It's not just about us figuring it out. What happens if we can't? In that moment, Tim realized he could no longer protect Jake from the burdens he himself bore. There's a chance we lose the house. Jake. The admission fell from his lips like a stone, heavy and unforgiving. Jake stepped back, the anguish in his expression cutting deep. Why didn't you tell me? Tim could only stand there, caught between the wall of overwhelming emotions and his desperate need to shield his son. I wanted to, but I didn't want to scare you. I thought you thought what? Jake interrupted, his voice rising with hurt. That we could just pretend everything was okay? Tim hung his head. I thought I could fix it before you had to know. Silence crashed down, pressing against them with an unforgiving pressure. In that moment, it felt as if everything they'd slowly begun to build together was crumbling once more. The Christmas lights flickered, casting dancing shadows that seemed to mock their reality. They were a family still, but the weight of secrets threatened to push them apart. Tim glanced at Sarah, who watched them with a mixture of sympathy and concern, but amid the despair, a quiet determination began to rise in Tim's chest. They could either crumble or face this together. Jake, he said firmly, nudging his son back into the conversation. What do we do next? Jake's brow furrowed, the hardness slowly melting. I don't know, but we need a plan. Tim nodded, his heart swelling with an unwavering resolve. Then let us figure one out. Together. The flickering flame of hope that had started to flicker in Jake's eyes was now kindled with purpose. As they began to brainstorm, the door creaked in the wind behind Sarah. Suddenly, a new knock shattered the moment, a swift, urgent rap that made Tim's gut twist anew. Before he could even process it, Jake had moved to open the door again, curiosity outweighing caution. What awaited them there could either offer a lifeline in their storm or plunge them deeper into the unknown. The door swung wide, revealing a man dressed in a worn-out suit, his face stern but oddly familiar. Tim squinted, trying to place him. Jake's eyes widened. Dad, it's Mr. Collins. Mr. Collins was their landlord, a figure that loomed large in Tim's mind, often bringing a mix of dread and anxiety. He stepped in, the cold breeze following him, and immediately spotted the tension in the room. Tim could see confusion flickering in Mr. Collins' eyes as he quickly assessed the atmosphere. Is everything okay? Mr. Collins asked, a slight frown crossing his face. Not exactly, Tim said, his throat tight. He shifted, unsure of how much he wanted to share. Before he could say more, Mr. Collins took a step forward, tapping his fingers together. I heard about the bank letter, he said bluntly. I came by to talk. Can we sit? Jake looked up at Tim, a mix of curiosity and worry in his gaze. Tim exchanged a glance with Sarah, who remained quietly supportive by the door. All right, Tim finally said, gesturing toward the small dining table in the corner. As they settled down, Tim felt the weight of Mr. Collins' scrutiny. The silence was thick, filled only by the distant hum of the neighbor's television. Jake sat next to his dad, clutching his fingers tightly, while Sarah leaned against the wall, arms crossed, a watchful presence. Listen, Mr. Collins began, his voice softening, I know times are tough for you. I've been in your shoes. Tim's heart raced. The words lingered in the air, heavy with understanding. You mean you've gone through this? What did you do? Mr. Collins sighed, sitting back in his chair. I didn't handle it well at first. I tried to hide from it. But the truth is, facing it head-on is what helped me. I had to find solutions, not just excuses. Tim felt a spark of hope igniting within him, a light flickering in the darkness that had surrounded them. What solutions? We've got a month to figure this out. Mr. Collins leaned forward, his expression shifting from stern to empathetic. I can help. I have some connections with the bank. There may be options payment plans, or a way to defer the foreclosure for a while if you act quickly. Jake looked between the two men, his youthful face a mix of hope and caution. But what if that's not enough? Tim placed a hand on Jake's knee, trying to give him comfort. We'll take it one step at a time, buddy, he said, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. We've got to explore every option. Mr. Collins nodded. Right. Some might say it's impossible, but you have to fight for what's yours. You can't let fear control your life. The word struck Tim hard. He felt a swell of resolve deep within him. They couldn't just sit back and let the tide carry them away. Okay, Tim said, his voice steadying as he met Mr. Collins' gaze. What do we do next? As they began discussing possible steps, Jake suddenly interrupted, his expression turning serious. Wait. What if the bank wants more than just money? What if they want us out? Tim's heart sank again, the room feeling even smaller with the weight of that question. Silence enveloped them once more, the reality pressing heavily in the air, and in that charged moment, Tim felt the air shift. They were standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down, nerves fraying. But for the first time, he felt a flicker of hope. Then, Tim said, straightening up, we will fight. We're not going anywhere without a fight. Just then, another knock on the door echoed through the room, sharp and demanding like a drumbeat. Tim's eyes darted towards it, heart pounding in his chest. Who could it be now? As Jake glanced towards the door, Tim felt the weight of uncertainty creeping back in. What awaited them on the other side could either help them push forward in the battle they were only beginning to understand or could throw them into turmoil. The knock reverberated through the small space, breaking the tense silence like a sudden clap of thunder. Tim's heart raced as he exchanged nervous glances with Jake and Sarah. The moment felt charged, a thick tension hanging in the air, each tick of the clock echoing louder than the last. Who is it? Tim called out, his voice steadier than he felt. There was no immediate response, just a shuffle and the sound of footsteps outside the door. Jake's fingers clenched tighter around Tim's leg, a silent expression of his anxiety. Tim could feel the disquiet swirling in the room, thick and palpable. Dad, what if it's the bank? Jake asked, his voice barely a whisper. Mr. Collins leaned forward in his chair, his sharp gaze focused on the door as if he could divine the identity of the visitor. Let us find out, he replied, his tone suggesting cautious optimism. Tim pushed off from the table and took a deep breath, his mind racing through possibilities. Maybe it was someone with good news or a sympathetic neighbor who could help. Or perhaps it was a reminder that everything was on the brink of collapse. With a slight tremor in his hands, he reached for the doorknob and turned it slowly, finding the weight of it familiar yet unsettling. He pulled back the door, bracing himself for whatever lay beyond. Standing in the doorway was a woman, her brow furrowed in concern. It was Mrs. Jensen, the retired schoolteacher from down the hall. Tim, I heard, she started, her voice creaky as if it had been a while since she'd used it. Mrs. Jensen, Tim breathed, relief washing over him. What brings you here? Her eyes drifted past him into the cramped apartment. I heard some noise and I wanted to check in. I have some news. Can I come in? Sure. Tim stepped aside to let her pass, a sense of curiosity replacing some of the tension. Mrs. Jensen moved toward the table, her gaze landing on Mr. Collins. Mr. Collins, good to see you. They exchanged subdued nods. I thought it was about time I got involved. You shouldn't have to deal with this alone. Jake watched, his little brows knit together, uncertainty still lingering. Tim gestured for him to sit back down. They all sat, the dynamic now shifting, the threat of despair momentarily set aside. "Tim, I don't want to overstep," Mrs. Jensen started, taking a deep breath, "but there are community resources I think you should know about. I've been volunteering at the local shelter, and they have programs to assist families facing foreclosure. You don't have to wait for the bank to decide your fate." The words hung in the air, a glimmer of hope piercing through the weight of their troubles. Tim's heart began to race, not with fear this time but with a growing surge of determination. "Really? I didn't know about these resources. Can you tell me more?" She nodded eagerly. "Of course. We can go together, I have contacts there. They can help with financial counseling, legal support, whatever you need to fight this battle." As she spoke, Tim felt the walls of dread begin to recede. Someone cared, support was within reach. "Dad, can we go?" Jake said, his spirit lifting as the possibility of action replaced the suffocating sense of hopelessness. "Yes," Tim said, meeting his son's hopeful gaze. "We can fight this together." Mr. Collins smiled approvingly. "That's the spirit. You just need to rally the support you have around you." But before Tim could express his gratitude, the room was suddenly filled with the sharp sound of silence, as if someone had turned down the volume of their lives. Tim's heart sank again as he noticed Mrs. Jensen's face change. "What is it?" he asked, noticing her expression hardening, as if she was recalling an unseen danger. I don't want to alarm you," she paused, glancing quickly at the door, "but I heard some unsettling things about the bank's next steps. Rumors of an aggressive approach. They might come after you sooner than you think." Tim's pulse quickened, the new weight of urgency pressing down on him. They had no time to waste. "Then we move fast," Tim declared, determination flooding his words. "We have to mobilize, bring everyone in our corner." Just then, another sound chimed in from the distance, a car roaring down the street, too loud and too fast. The weight of that sound felt like a spotlight, shining down on their little gathering. "Before it's too late," Tim added, a fire igniting within him. "We need a plan, and we need it now." The urgency was palpable in the cramped room, and just as they began to discuss their next moves, another knock echoed from the door, more insistent than ever. "Who is it this time?" Tim thought, anxiety returning, even stronger now. The answers they were seeking seemed increasingly elusive, and the possibility of hope now threaded with uncertainty felt like both a blessing and a burden, a combination that made him wonder whether this was indeed the beginning or the end of their fight. Tim's heart raced as he stared at the door, the sudden knock pulling him back to reality. He exchanged quick glances with Mrs. Jensen, whose expression hinted that she felt the tension too. Jake clutched the table, his small hands trembling slightly. "Should I open it?" he asked, looking at Tim, fear evident in his wide eyes. "We should stay united," Mr. Collins said, his voice steady. "But it's your call, Tim." Tim took a breath, the taste of uncertainty thick in the air. "Let us see who it is." Each step toward the door felt heavy, laden with the weight of their situation. He turned the knob, prepared for anything. The door swung open to reveal a tall man in a crisp suit, a clipboard clutched under his arm. His hair was slicked back, and he wore a serious expression. Tim felt a chill not just from the man's demeanor but from the realization of who he might be. "Mr. Collins?" the man said, his voice clear and authoritative. Tim's heart sank, this stranger was no friendly neighbor. "I'm Tim Collins. Can I help you?" The man scanned the room briefly and took a step closer. "I'm with Sterling Bank. There's been a lot of talk about your foreclosure process. I'm here to inform you that an appointment has been set for the bank's review tomorrow morning." Tim's stomach flipped. "What kind of review?" The man leaned in slightly, the clipboard between them like a barrier. "It's a final decision meeting. They'll decide whether to proceed with the foreclosure or consider options for a repayment plan." He paused, gauging their reactions. "It's critical that you attend." Mrs. Jensen shifted in her seat, her earlier optimism shadowed by the reality of the situation. What if we appeal? What if we have new information? The man's expression didn't soften. Unfortunately, if you don't act quickly, your chances will diminish. I'd advise seeking a legal counsel. The blow felt like a punch to the gut. Tim's mind raced. That's tomorrow morning? Just like that? Yes. And I suggest you come prepared. The decision is made outside of compassion. You need facts, figures, and a solid argument. He glanced down at his clipboard, as if to emphasize the urgency, then turned to leave. Wait. Tim called out, desperation creeping into his voice. What if we don't have everything ready? Can we reschedule? The man paused, glancing back with a hint of pity. I suggest you don't miss this. You're already out of time. And with that, he walked away, leaving the door swinging slightly in the aftermath. The reality of the situation settled like a storm cloud above them, heavy and foreboding. What are we going to do now? Jake's voice trembled, each word dragging with worry. Tim felt the weight of his son's gaze, the pressure of their mom's absence thickening the air. We gather every last piece of paperwork. We need to show them that we're fighting for this. Mr. Collins nodded, his eyes narrowing in thought. What about talking to an attorney? Mrs. Jensen mentioned resources. We can't let this slip away. Yes, we'll do all of that. Tim felt the surge of determination mixed with fear. But we have to split up and move fast. Time is what they have and we don't. Together, Jake insisted, raising his chin slightly, courage igniting in him. Together, Tim echoed, but the uncertainty gnawed at him. As they set off to gather together everything they need, another sound crept into the mix, the rumble of a car passing, followed by another knock at the door. Tim felt his heart freeze in his chest. Was this another threat? Or perhaps a lifeline in disguise? He exchanged glances again, the echo of previous conversations a haunting reminder of their precarious position. Who could it be now? He whispered, apprehension and hope swirling in his gut. As he approached the door again, the weight of the moment felt heavier than before, edging closer to the reality that this might not just be a fight for their home. What awaited him on the other side could change everything. Taking a steadying breath, he opened the door once more. Tim's heart hammered in his chest as the door swung open. He braced himself for whatever lay beyond, but the sight that met him was unexpected. A woman stood there, cradling a large casserole dish in her arms. Her dark curly hair framed a warm smile, and her eyes sparkled with familiarity. Hi, Tim. It's Lisa, she said, her voice bright and full of energy. I thought I'd bring over some dinner. You all have been on my mind. Tim blinked, momentarily disoriented. This was Lisa, their neighbor from 3 doors down. They hadn't spoken much lately, especially not since the whole foreclosure news had spread through the neighborhood. Still, her presence felt like a breath of fresh air amidst the chaos. Hey, Lisa, he managed, glancing back over his shoulder at Jake and Mrs. Jensen, who were squinting at the visitor. He stepped aside, motioning her in with a shake of his head, as if to erase the unexpected tension. Come on in. As she stepped inside, the aroma of whatever was in that casserole dish enveloped him like a warm hug. It was comforting, a reminder of ordinary days before everything turned upside down. You didn't have to, Tim began, feeling awkward in the face of kindness. He didn't want to burden others with his struggles. Of course I did. No one should go through tough times alone, she replied, setting the dish down on the kitchen table. Her enthusiasm was infectious, a stark contrast to the heavy atmosphere lingering in the room. She looked around, her expression shifting slightly as she caught sight of the piles of papers scattered across the table. What's all this? Just some paperwork we're sorting through, Tim said, waving a hand as if to brush it all away. But her sharp gaze was already scrutinizing the documents. I can help if you'd like, she offered. I used to work at a law firm, hadn't he found the heart to leave the community behind completely? And they did teach me a thing or two about these kinds of things. Tim felt a glimmer of hope. Really? That would be amazing, Lisa. We have a meeting with the bank tomorrow morning about the foreclosure process. Lisa's brow furrowed slightly in concern, but her resolve was undeniable. Let us tackle this together. You can show me what you have, and we can figure out the best way to present it. Jake, who had been watching quietly from his seat at the table, leaned forward. Can we really do that? Help with all this? Absolutely. Lisa said, her smile returning. Every small step counts. And the bank has to listen if you come prepared. You've got this. Tim's heart swelled seeing Jake's face light up. Hope was a funny thing, it thrived even in bleak circumstances. With Lisa's help, their chances of saving their home felt more tangible. Minutes passed as they worked through the kitchen, gathering documents and organizing their thoughts. Each paper they shuffled and arranged became a small victory against the rising tide of worry. Tim felt a renewed purpose with the surge of support behind him. As they finished up and Lisa took a moment to breathe, she leaned back in her chair, eyeing Tim. You know, it really does take a community to overcome tough times. You've been there for everyone else. Now, it's our turn to be there for you. Tim nodded, gratitude swelling in his chest. I didn't realize how much we needed this help. I've been so caught up in fear, I forgot that I'm not alone in this. But just as he spoke, an uncomfortable silence fell over them. A distant roar from outside interrupted their moment. The sound of a heavy vehicle coming to a stop sent a chill through the space. Who could that be? Jake whispered. Tim's heart sank again. Was it the bank, sending someone to intimidate them? Or was there something else? He glanced at Lisa, uncertainty clouding his expression. He took a step towards the window and peered out, the moment stretching painfully. What if this was another threat that would shatter the fragile hope they had built? With a deep breath, Tim turned back to the group. Let us find out what could possibly await them. When he opened the door again, Tim held his breath as he turned the doorknob, his mind racing. What would he find? His hand hesitated for a split second, feeling the cool metal against his palm. He drew in a sharp breath, forcing himself to act. When he opened the door, the sight was almost too surreal to process. It wasn't the bank or anyone threatening, it was a delivery truck, large and intimidating, parked across the street. Two men were unloading boxes, their movements quick and practiced. Deliveries at this hour? Lisa murmured from behind him, her voice barely above a whisper. Tim squinted, straining to see what was inside the truck. Then it hit him. A flash of recognition stirred in his mind, followed by a wave of warmth. No, it can't be, he said, suddenly feeling a flutter of anticipation in his stomach. He stepped fully outside, his breath hitching as the door swung shut behind him. The delivery men now carried a hefty box into the house across the street, and as they moved, he caught sight of a familiar face peeking out. It was Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman he'd cared for during past community events. A smile spread across his face, unbidden, as she waved at him. Tim! Mrs. Thompson called, her voice raspy but bright. Can you believe it? They're delivering my new furniture. It's all so lovely. Tim couldn't help but smile wider. That's great news. Congratulations. Jake dashed to the door behind him, curiosity clear in his eyes. Is it an ice cream truck? He asked hopefully, peering over Tim's shoulder. No, buddy, Tim chuckled, glancing back with a hint of encouragement. But maybe we can celebrate with her. We should go help. As they stepped closer, Lisa followed, her pace steady with support. Suddenly, Mrs. Thompson's face morphed from surprise to excitement as she saw her neighbors approaching. Oh, my dear Tim. You and Jake have to come help me set everything up. You know I can't lift half of this stuff. Tim shot a sideways glance at Lisa, who gave him an encouraging nod. For a moment, the heavy burdens they carried faded, replaced by the warmth of community that filled the air. "Of course, Mrs. Thompson. We'd love to help," Tim replied, the anxiety from moments before evaporating in the face of friendship. As they hurried over to lend a hand, laughter and chatter filled the space, all pain momentarily forgotten. Once inside the cozy home, boxes lined the walls, filled with warm rugs, bright cushions, and decorations that sparked memories of joyful gatherings. Each item came with stories their neighbors had shared over the years. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement, a stark contrast to the weightiness that had loomed earlier. "Look at all this!" Jake exclaimed, hopping from one box to another, his laughter infectious. "Can you imagine? This will brighten up the whole room." Mrs. Thompson gushed, her eyes sparkling as she held up a bright yellow lamp. "It will be perfect for reading by the window." Lisa joined in on the fun, quickly arranging throw pillows on the couch. "You know, every time you think you're alone, a little miracle steps in to remind you how connected we all are," she said, her voice light but with a depth that made it resonate. Tim caught her gaze, and for the first time that day, he wasn't just thinking about his troubles. He felt that same spark of hope they'd been working on earlier. It was a reminder of their tight-knit community, something bigger than his individual struggles, but just as they began to joke and laugh, the rumble of another engine interrupted them. Tim's heart sank again as he turned toward the window. A different vehicle pulled into view, a sleek car he didn't recognize. It rolled to a stop, and the door opened slowly. Who was it this time? Would they bring another wave of anxiety or unearth something he didn't expect? With renewed trepidation, Tim braced himself for whatever awaited. As that door swung open, the atmosphere shifted with the promise of something that could change everything. The figure stepping out of the car was a woman, dressed sharply in a professional outfit that contrasted wildly with the relaxed ambience inside Mrs. Thompson's home. Tim squinted, trying to discern her features from the distance, when suddenly, recognition hit him like a wave. "Is that," he murmured, his heart racing. It was Mia, his former colleague from the bank. It had been months since he'd seen her, and even longer since they'd spoken. The memory of their last discussion, one overflowing with unfulfilled dreams and harsh realities, flooded his mind. "What is she doing here?" Lisa's voice broke through his thoughts, uncertainty lacing her tone. I don't know," he stammered. The anxiety washed over him again at the thought of their last interaction, how separated their paths had become. Tim watched as Mia straightened her blouse and scanned the street. When her eyes landed on him, her expression shifted from uncertainty to a mixture of surprise and delight. "Tim!" she called out, her voice vibrant and warm. "Hey, Mia!" Tim managed to say, stepping out from the cozy confines of Mrs. Thompson's living room. Jake stayed close to his leg, sensing the shift in his father's demeanor. As Mia approached, Tim could see her eyes were full of excitement. "I was in the area and thought I'd drop by," she said, her words tumbling out. "I had no idea you lived this close." It's been a while," he said, trying to keep the conversation light, but his heart thudded anxiously. Mia's smile faltered for a moment, as if she could sense the turmoil brewing in their shared past. "I've been meaning to reach out. Things have changed a lot since we last spoke." "What do you mean?" Tim asked, unable to hide his curiosity. He was intrigued but also wary, unsure of what she might divulge. She took a breath, her smile returning with resilience. "I finally took the leap. I left the bank and started my own financial advising business. It's scary, but I feel alive, you know? I wanted to tell you that it's possible to shift your path. You have to believe you can do more." The sincerity in her eyes ignited something within Tim. Could she be addressing not just her own journey, but also his? He thought back to their conversations, the dreams they had shared, hopes that now felt like faded memories. "That's incredible, Mia," he replied, feeling a spark of inspiration. I'm really happy for you. Mia seemed to absorb his words. I was hoping you'd consider joining me for lunch to catch up. I know a place nearby where we can talk. Tim felt the walls around him grow a little taller. A lunch invitation, discussing dreams? It felt like he was being pulled into a world just out of reach. He wanted to say yes, to open that door, but anxiety flooded back. Would he be able to? Did he have a place in that new life? Distracted, he realized the commotion inside Mrs. Thompson's house had shifted, the laughter now replaced with whispers of curiosity. Are you okay, Dad? Jake looked up at him, wide-eyed. I'm good, buddy. Just a little surprised. Tim glanced back at Mia, who stood patiently, an inviting smile still lingering. Tim, she called softly, her tone warm and reassuring. Don't worry, no pressure. Just think about it. Tim nodded, feeling a mix of hope and fear battling within him. As he observed Mia, a flood of memories cascaded through his mind, reminding him of who he once aspired to be. Just as he was about to respond, a deafening crash echoed from inside the house. Everyone turned their heads toward the sound, startled. What was that? Lisa exclaimed, her eyes wide with alarm. Tim's heart raced again. Was it the laughter ending or something darker lurking within the walls of comfort? As he stepped inside, the atmosphere thick with uncertainty, he knew one thing for sure, the invitation for lunch, the unexpected encounter, it all came with deeper implications. What awaited him behind that door could change everything, but would he have the courage to embrace it? Tim rushed back into Mrs. Thompson's home, anxiety prickling at the back of his mind. The laughter and cheerful banter that had filled the air moments before had dissolved into confusion and alarm. He could feel Jake inching closer, the warmth of his presence a small comfort amidst the growing tension. As Tim stepped into the living room, the sight that met him was both alarming and oddly heartwarming. A cascade of candy canes and festive decorations lay strewn across the floor, the result of an overenthusiastic Jake attempting to hang ornaments on the tree, only to send the whole collection tumbling down. Jake! Tim exclaimed, a mix of concern and amusement in his tone. What happened? I was just trying to help decorate. Jake said, his cheeks flushed with embarrassment. But I think I made a mess. A wave of relief washed over Tim. The chaos around them, a distraction from all the weight pressing on his shoulders, brought an unbidden smile. Well, looks like we've got some rearranging to do. How about you and I take care of it together? Jake's eyes lit up, and for a moment, the shadows of uncertainty faded. Together, they began picking up the scattered decorations, laughter bubbling between them. Lisa joined in, helping to move furniture and straighten up while sharing light-hearted jokes about the great candy cane catastrophe. As they worked, Tim felt the warm glow of hope beginning to envelop him again. This moment of lightness reminded him of the importance of community and family, the fabric that held them together. Amid decay and turmoil, life surged forward, and they were, against all odds, still a family. Then, a sudden thought jolted him. He turned to Lisa. You mentioned something about resources for us to fight back. Can we set that up while we're fixing this? A smile stretched across her face. Absolutely. There's a community resource meeting next week. I can get you the information. And if your meeting with the bank goes well, she paused, her eyes sparkling, we can strategize our next moves together. The idea settled in him, a blend of excitement and anxiety. They could actually change the outcome. For the first time in days, he felt like they were clawing back control over their lives, moving from a place of despair to tangible action. As they finished tidying up, the doorbell chimed again, catching them off guard. Tim exchanged glances with everyone before approaching the door, his heart thrumming. With newfound courage and the warmth of community behind him, he opened it to reveal not just anyone, but an unexpected face, Mr. Collins, holding a box of freshly baked cookies and a note. Thought you could use a treat, Mr. Collins said, his voice warm. I heard about what's going on with the bank and wanted to check in. You're not alone in this fight, Tim. We're all behind you. The sincerity of his words caught Tim off guard, filling his chest with gratitude. Thank you, Mr. Collins. It means a lot. The recognition of support ignited a fire in Tim's heart. As they accepted the cookies, laughter resurfaced again, filling the house with warmth, with Jake grinning from ear to ear, Mrs. Thompson clapping her hands with excitement, and Lisa offering support. The atmosphere shifted. Joy threaded through their gathering, a reminder that beyond the challenges lay a web of friendship, resilience, and love. Tim looked at his son, who was witnessing a different kind of strength. Jake, he said firmly, this is how we face our problems, together, just like we promised. I see that, Dad, Jake replied quietly, his youthful cheeks flushed with new hope. It feels good to have help. Absolutely. This is our community, Tim beamed, feeling the surge of gratitude wrap around him like a comfortable blanket. He realized now that though they faced a storm, he would never have to weather it alone. He turned back to the group, determination brewing within him. Tomorrow, we go to that bank meeting prepared. We'll gather every resource we can and fight for our home. The room erupted in collective cheers, echoing with laughter. Together they tapped into a shared spirit of resilience, creating plans and building bonds that transcended the immediate crisis. Just before everyone settled, Mia stepped in from the doorway, her expression resolute. I heard everything, she said, her gaze steady. And I want to help. You've got my full support. Tim looked around the room, his heart swelling. At that moment, he realized that sometimes, life offers connections and community exactly when you need them most. Each challenge only deepened their bonds, and together, they were unstoppable. Maybe the path ahead would be difficult. Maybe it would be messy and uncertain. But standing shoulder to shoulder with those he cared for, he felt ready to embrace whatever came next. A renewed sense of purpose rippled through him as he welcomed each of them closer, heart racing with hope. Let us do this. And together, they would rewrite the narrative of their lives, filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. If you felt inspired by this journey of resilience, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for our channel. Leave a like right now. Your engagement helps fuel this community. Comment below with your thoughts about this ending and how you've faced your own challenges. Don't wait not even one more second to share this story with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. It could make a difference in their lives too. Join us and be part of this movement today.